And so, welcome to another episode of Wellness Begins Within. And I have the absolute pleasure of being here with Alisa. And I just want to read a little bio of Alisa just to give you a little insight into her and everything that she has achieved and accomplished so far in her life. So she is an entrepreneur, she's a business strategist, she's an educator, and a real estate professional with over 20 years of experience building and scaling successful businesses. Prior to real estate, she led a top performing sales organization in the natural health industry, coaching more than 1,200 representatives and generating millions in product sales. Throughout her career, Alisa has received multiple industry awards, including a Best in Canada recognition in the nutrition field, a Specialty Speaker Award, and several sales and leadership awards. She became known for traveling across Canada, lecturing on business growth, leadership, sales, and personal development. And at the core of every business that Alisa has built is one consistent focus, which is helping people reach their goals. So whether through mentorship, business strategy, or real estate, her passion has always been rooted in serving others at a high level and helping them move forward with confidence. After transitioning into real estate, Alisa quickly created momentum in an entirely new industry. So in 2025, she and her team ranked in the top 20 in Canada within Keller Williams Canada for 7 of the 12 months. They were also the number one team in GCI within their brokerage for both 2024 and 2025. And today, Alisa continues to grow her real estate business, helping clients buy and sell across Ontario, while also dedicating time to mentoring entrepreneurs on how to launch, scale, and strengthen their businesses. As an advisor, she shares her knowledge around business strategy, sales growth, leadership, and the power of mindset to help others create long-term success. And so the point about mindset really jumps out to me. And that's, you had done a video recently just talking about, those shifts in mindset that can happen when we start paying attention to how we're talking about ourselves and how we're talking about the work that we're going to do. So maybe you wanted to chat. I like to dive right in.
I love it. I love
But
it.
talking about how mindset has made an impact and how it's really kind of driven your success in business and your work as an entrepreneur, I would love to hear like how you got involved in that and how you started exploring that facet of your own personal self.
I feel like if you've been an entrepreneur long enough, you figure out that mindset probably impacts most of your results. We get into this idea that like we can make it happen and we can push, and there's just, I feel like you get to the mindset part as part of the natural progression of being an entrepreneur if you can kind of stick through it. I remember being told, mindset is 80-90% of your results, and me being like, yeah, but I'm a hard worker. I can just outwork everyone, and just how much chaos and out of balance I felt when that's how I was working, as a businesswoman. So mindset was something I think I've studied really probably for 20 years. I've always had like a mindset book on the go. I've taken a lot of coaching, a lot of courses. I've made those investments. But I've realized that the thoughts I think influence how I feel, which is essentially my emotions are vibrational, they're measured. And how I feel is then going to influence the type of action I'm even willing to take, right? How many times as entrepreneurs do we give ourselves heck for procrastinating or not doing things or not following up or doing the things we know we should be doing, but we're afraid to do? And that fear is actually an emotion, right? And then from those emotions, we get our results. But most of us, and I remember I had it backwards, I wanted the results to feel good and so that I could think the right thoughts and then take the right actions, which is like telling a wood stove, give me heat and then I'll give you wood. Right? It just doesn't work
I
that
love
way.
that analogy.
But it took me a long time to kind of figure that out, that, whoa, I have to like be first in control of what's going on in my mind, and understand that there's programs there from childhood, from experiences I've had as an adult. I haven't had a really super easy life, so I've had to overcome a lot of pretty serious and significant things. And those create programs that can influence. And I know all anyone listening to this has had things that have impacted their lives and created programs in themselves that could be either having a positive or a negative impact on their results that they're getting. So yeah, I just had to learn. I had to figure out the upstairs. I had to figure out the thoughts, which are going to influence how I feel, which is then going to influence the actions I take and the courage that I have in my business, which is going to then give me the result I want.
To me, that is like the most grounded way of really thinking about manifestation. So people are talking about manifestation, how to achieve this and how to achieve that. And it's like you first are working on your mindset and how you're going about it, knowing that that is going to be the key to whether or not you're successful or not in that particular area. So it's a
I
very,
agree.
yeah, to me, it feels a very grounded way of looking at, in essence, you're still manifesting whatever the cultural norms and the TikTok videos and all the rest of it, talking about manifestation as if it's like this instant practice. But like you said, like you have been working on your mind and what your goals, your focus for 20 years. It's not something that happened overnight. Certainly, the person you were 20 years ago is not the person that you are today in business.
Well, success is very intentional. I think we see all of these amazing success stories and it just happened, but we don't necessarily even see the 20 years or 10 years or the hundreds or thousands of hours that somebody put in to get to that position. Um, and I remember being taught years ago, I had a friend in the health supplement company that I was part of the sales team there. And he's like, you just got to change the radio station, Alyssa. You
Oh,
can't listen to jazz on the rock station. Like you have to
oh,
change the frequency of what you're tuning into. And that really stuck with me. And that frequency, we can literally feel it in our body,
hmm,
right? It's like if somebody walks into the room and they're grumpy or they're angry or they're confrontational, like most of us can pick up on that
yeah.
because that's the radio station they're plugged into, right? So I think it's important for us to be like, okay, what frequency am I
Do I want to
aligning
be up?
myself
Yeah.
with?
And I think like I work with a lot of people who are highly sensitive, highly intuitive. So in the early days where, as you say, like most people will be able to feel the emotions when people are coming in with that. But in the early days, sometimes people will assume that those feelings, thoughts, emotions are their own. But really it's because they can't distinguish between how they're feeling and how other people are feeling because they're so porous. They basically have no energetic or emotional boundaries. So it's like the clearer you are and how you are actually feeling, it's going to help you kind of navigate the world as a
Yeah,
super
yeah,
sensitive person.
totally. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many different ways to look at it, but I know for myself, it's like, what am I thinking? How am I feeling?
Hmm.
And those two things I have a lot of control over those,
Hmm.
right? And our brains, like, I don't know how many thoughts go through my head in a day. It's like I'm a
At least
thinker.
500,000 as a mother.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And it's like, and I'm still to this day, years and years into this mindset practice catching myself going down the wrong rabbit hole, like fear, worry, anxiety, doubts. I still catch myself every single day going, yesterday, I was sharing with you before you started to record, I had a moment and I'm like, oh my gosh. But what I've learned is I can get out of it faster.
Mhm.
What maybe would have derailed me or distracted me or sent me looking for other options that maybe I should be exploring, which is, I taught business at the nutrition college for 12 years. And we had so many highly educated people that just constantly derailed new course, new program, new certification, right? And never actually did anything with all the amazing knowledge that they had. So yesterday when I had that moment, and I had it, it was real. I felt it. I allowed myself to be like, okay, this is how I'm feeling right now. I'm going to wallow in a little bit of self-pity, but I'm over it so much faster. What, like I said, could have derailed or set me down a completely, wrong path. I'm back on the tracks. Everything's organized today.
Mhm.
But I will say probably the biggest piece to this, which was not an easy thing to do, was I had to learn to get up early and spend an hour in a mindset practice before my day began.
Mhm.
And I do 7 days a week. I am up doing a mindset practice for at least an hour every single day because that's the only way I can really, I'm in business. I'm
Mhm.
a mom. I have 4 kids. I have a granddaughter who lives at our home. We have busy lives. My husband's in sales as well. Like, if I don't get that practice in, then I feel less in control of my mindset and how I'm feeling throughout the rest of the day. And then, chaos creates chaos.
Do you are you able to share anything specific about your mindset practice? Do you use
Oh, of
affirmations?
course.
Do you work with EFT? Do you work with
Yeah, so I'm a believer. So you always read a little bit of the Bible and first thing in the morning. I feel like the words we read program our body. And then I usually will go into prayer and meditation. Meditation's really important. So, and it doesn't matter where your beliefs are in the whole spectrum of beliefs that are out there. For me, this is what works.
Mhm.
And it helps to ground me. And then I love the saying, I don't know if prayer works, but it sure does increase the coincidence.
I love that. I love that. And one of my favorite quotes is like prayer is really our process of asking for what we want, asking God for what we want,
Agree.
and
Yes.
meditation is our opportunity to listen and to get the response back. So for me,
My
it's like it's really two,
both.
yeah,
They
parts
go
of the
together. And that's a very important part. So I get up, I fill my mind with things that are important to me spiritually, and then I go right into prayer where I'm, discussing, here's my, this is what I'm worried about, or this is what I'm trying
yeah,
to
yeah.
navigate, or this is, where I pray for a lot of blessings and protection and
Mhm.
stuff like that, because that's important to me. And then I go right into meditation where it's like, yeah, I'm just open to receiving. And I use the Insight Timer, which is a free app that
Oh.
got all kinds of great music on there. And I just spend that time getting centered. Sometimes I'm focusing on my goals in that meditation.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm searching for solutions or creative ideas. Sometimes I'm just listening to what intuitively comes to me. But it really, and sometimes it's absolutely earth-shattering, amazing. I can't believe I just had that experience. And then other times it's like, all right,
I knew that.
nothing really major
Yeah.
and exciting. But that practice, it centers me because as an entrepreneur, I used to get up and as a mom, 4 little kids, like I've built my businesses around my kids.
Mhm.
So I would get up and the moment my feet hit the ground, my day chased me. I
Mm.
had a bazillion things to do for the kids. I had a whole bunch of things I had to do for the business. I just lived in this constant state of stress and anxiety, trying to do it all. And I've always had a good meditation and a good spiritual practice in
Mhm.
place. It's part of who I am as a human. But it was actually when COVID first hit and I didn't have to get up and run out the door with the kids first thing in the morning. That's when I started my practice. So
Wow.
it's been 6 years of every single day. So it's built into how I operate.
Mhm.
Um, but it took me out of that fight or flight from
Mhm.
first thing in the morning. And none of us are able to do amazing things consistently
Mhm.
if we're stuck in fight or flight all day long, every
Yes.
day.
Yeah, and it's such a good, like, I'm just thinking of like tuning that frequency, right? You're literally setting the energy of what your focus is for the day. So if you're working on a big contract or a big deal, it's like
Yeah.
I'm tuned into the like I'm gonna get this and it's gonna be smooth sailing, or at least if any problems come up, I'll be able to, overcome them. And then maybe there's just days where you're more chill. It's like, oh, I'd love to, work with a client on this project or this project, and like kind of you're in a way you're setting your energy of what the tone of the day ideally is going to look like. I love that.
I feel like it's also allowed me to let go of control,
Mhm. I
and
need
just allow, right? Like, and it's hard. There's ways that we want everything. And if you're an entrepreneur, wellness industry, whatever, I was in the wellness industry for 20 years.
that. Mhm.
We want to have, I think as entrepreneurs, we're so aware that we're creating
Mhm.
constantly, right? Creating programs, we're creating support, we're creating helping our clients reach their goals, whatever that is. But there's this underlying sense of I need to control and determine the outcomes that is, I've found my mindset practice has helped me to release me from that idol of needing to be in control and just allowing and being okay with the way things unfold, because they usually unfold perfectly. I might not see it in the moment, but it really does. So when we get out of this need to control how everything unfolds, uh, often that allows for exactly what's meant to be.
Mm.
to
Mm.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like trust with faith combined with,
Yes.
the resilience to be able to handle whatever comes your way. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of
Yeah.
people, especially, I feel like I say this every year, and I have for
Hmm.
the last 6 years. It's like every year it feels like that practice becomes so much more important, right? Because you're starting your day in a way where you're not reacting to other people's problems, challenges, stresses. You're not, probably you're not on your device first thing in the morning checking to see what emails you got, who's wanting something, what do I need to, obviously kids are a little bit different. They've got
Hmm.
they've got their
I
own
get up before
schedule and
them.
demands. Yeah. That's the secret. But how many people would just benefit from having that little bit of mindfulness every day, just to tune and say, like, what do I want my day to look like? Do I want it packed with a bunch of commitments that I have no interest in actually attending to? Or do I want to design a life that is a little bit more in line with, what feels good for me?
And it's totally designing a life like that. That's the secret to success, right? It's designing a life with faith and trust. But I think the other thing that it's helped me with is now I recognize when I'm out of alignment with how I'm feeling. So
Mhm.
when I get those moments of anxiety, which we all have, like if you're in business and you're not hitting a few moments,
Yeah.
like it's
You're not outside your comfort zone
I don't
enough.
know, man. Like I don't know. Like lucky you. But what it's taught me is how to like, ooh, I don't like. I'll say to my husband, like I'm out of I don't feel in alignment. I feel anxious, or I'm gonna go meditate. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
pray. Like I'm gonna go, and I will just take. And sometimes it's 5 minutes. I'll put
Totally.
on a 3 minute timer on the Insight timer, and
Mhm.
I'm like, I'm just going to breathe through this for 3 minutes and give myself permission. And I think if more people just learn to pause, reset that hormonal reaction, because we know those feelings create a physiological reaction in the body. And that physiological reaction can have consequences if it's not controlled. Like I don't know how many people came to me, in 20 years when I was in practice in natural health, because of stress that just
Blood
like
pressure,
created
of
disease
course.
in their body, right?
Yeah. A high blood pressure. Where did it come from? Well, it might be the unconstrained, uncontrolled stress that you
Gut
continue
issues,
to, yeah, yeah.
right?
Perfect
Like
example.
immune issues, hormonal issues, like, when we look at how those I think that's helped me too, is just it's taught me how to realize when I'm feeling the right way, which is always starts with my thoughts, and
Mhm.
then when I'm not, how to just pause for a second,
Mhm.
take some deep breaths. Sometimes I have to read, and I have a huge library behind me, and I'm reading The Magic right now. Again, I love this book. It's a
Oh,
gratitude practice,
yeah.
right? And it's part of my morning. So after I'm done prayer meditation, I always try to have a book that's like really positive or
Mhm.
like higher vibration
Yeah.
reading. And, just take me through a practice so that as I'm closing that off, I'm finishing with some intention.
And on a
Yeah.
high note, really.
Yeah, yeah. But I
You,
can pick up that book at any point that I'm not. And I journal. I'm a big fan of journaling. So like every day I write, like my new journal.
yeah.
I write a gratitude practice
Having a
and
good journal is so important. Never underestimate the power of a good journal. And I'm very particular. The
okay.
line's got to be a certain size and got to have a nice cover, nice pages, good pen.
I keep them all. I've got 20 years of them. And like when I go back and I'm like, I was worried about that.
Yeah. Isn't
But at
that
the time
so?
it felt like a big thing, right?
Yeah. And so that's a perfect, like, feels like a good segue to talk a little bit about programming and success. And so, you mentioned that you're a mom.
Hmm.
You started your business specifically so that you could be more present with your kids, but just thinking about programming around, being a woman, being a mother, being ambitious, and, maybe even around money a little bit. What kind of programming have you
Oh my
had to
gosh.
unlearn? Or even, one or two things that kind of stand out as being like real blocks that, you confronted probably pretty early on in your business journey.
Oh gosh, I don't even. I think like so I became an entrepreneur so I could be a mom. So
Mhm.
I wanted to build a business around my family. That was a core thing right from the get-go. I didn't want someone else to raise my kids.
Mhm.
I know for us in the 80s and 90s kids, you had a key to the house, you went home, you made dinner. Like both of like we were the generations where both parents, it was more common for them to work out of the home. And I just feel that there's nothing wrong with that. I didn't want my kids to have that. I wanted to be a very present parent. I want to drop them off and pick them up every single day from school, which I have done.
Wow.
My youngest is about to graduate grade 8, and we've done it. Didn't
Uh,
want to miss school trips. I think it was like the first thing was like I knew who I was, the type of mom I wanted to be, and what was important to me.
mhm,
But I also had to learn that it's impossible to do all things perfectly.
mhm.
And I
And
couldn't,
that's
there is
good
no better.
programming, right? Like society telling us all the time, like what it means to be a good mother is, it's not going to be the same for every family, really, based on your
It's
values.
based on your values. Like for some women, working out of the home on a regular schedule allows them, allows them
Me
to be the best
time.
kind of mom they want to be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like there's no right or wrong. For me, I am a freedom person, so I value freedom of choice, and I embrace that in other people, and I wanted to have the freedom to be present for my kids when I needed to be, and have summers with them and that sort of thing. So that was kind of chosen. But I realized as an entrepreneur, if I'm fully focused on my children, my business isn't going to do very well,
Mm.
right? But
Mm.
if I'm fully focused on my business, then I'm losing this freedom that I wanted to also raise my kids. So there is no balance. I haven't discovered it. I don't know if somebody else has. I hope they have, but I have not. And I had to learn to just do the best at what I was doing based on what I was doing. So when I was being a mom, I was doing the absolute best at being a mom. And when I was working, I was doing the absolute best at working. And then I just learned how to kind of switch between just different hats. And yeah, and that really, once I got that kind of in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm working right now. And my kids actually grew up. Like I've always worked from home, always been around. um, I would tell them, hey, I'm working. Or they would get up in the morning and be like, what are you working today? And I'm like, oh, well,
Mm.
mom's got to work till noon, and then we'll probably go to the beach or whatever. And it helped me create boundaries with the kids and respect with them as well. And like, I just have amazing children who always really respected my work.
Oh,
But they knew it wasn't all work. That
yeah.
work led to mom.
Experiences and money and
Yeah,
all of
it
the
led
things
to,
they needed.
yeah. And at one point I actually brought my husband home for 5 years,
Yeah.
because I was getting busy and I was lecturing across the country, and I had two very successful businesses, the
And
nutrition
4 kids.
company, 4 kids, and really successful sales team with the health products. So I was traveling, and I love that. I love experiences. I love traveling across Canada, and I was doing a lot of lectures. So we decided for him to come home for 5 years, and it was the best decision we ever made. It was the best
I
five
love it.
years of our
I
life.
love it.
And we had to sacrifice a little bit of his income,
Hmm.
right? But you just kind of have to figure out what's important to you,
Hmm.
and then just find a way to kind of make it happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, people all have very specific ideas about what success looked like. Do you feel like your kind of thoughts around success have changed in your 20 plus years in business? Like, what did you originally think about success? What do you see success now as you're getting older and your kids are older and starting to kind of, go off and have their own freedom of experience?
Funny because success matches our programs. Like we'll never
Ooh.
exceed our program in
Mm,
success. So if you're stuck somewhere, you're stuck at an income level, there
mm,
it is your program
mm.
that's where you are. So, but you kind of have to, like, you can't go from like level 1 to
Yeah.
level 100 and expect to, some people I can maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say you can't. But for me, it was very like, my first program of success was being home and present with my kids and paying the bills I needed to pay.
Hmm.
And that was success. Like, hey, I was able to stay home another month
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I
keep
love it.
doing this. And
Yeah.
and and to me, success is also loving what you do. I think if you're getting up and you're dreading the work that you're doing, that, for me, I couldn't live my life like that.
No,
That's not
no.
how I'm programmed. And then, as success grew, I think it's important to have big, ridiculous goals. I teach in business, there's three types of goals, which we can touch on.
Mhm.
But then it was like, once my bills were regularly paid, what was that next level? And then I would just up it. And then, I would work really hard and hit that next level, whether it was like bills were paid and we had no debt.
Mhm.
And then it was like bills were paid, we had no debt, and we lived in a house that fit our family. Then
Yeah.
it was, so it depends. Like our success to me has never been about a dollar amount.
Mhm.
It's always been about the lifestyle that my family was living,
Ooh.
and the freedom that I had to choose how my day looks, because that I'm definitely addicted to. If I
Mhm.
have an addiction, it is the freedom to determine my day, day in and day out.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to hear about those three types of goals.
So really in business, there's three types of goals, and most of us um, make mistakes when we goal set. I'm going to say this, and I only say this from experience because I did it. So there's A type goals, and I actually learned this from Bob Proctor.
Oh.
There's A type goals, which are goals that we've already done, things we already know how to do, right? I've made $1,000 a month or
Mhm.
$10,000 a month, and I'm going to set that as a goal. That's an A type goal. Nothing about you has to change.
Mhm. So it's something
Everything,
that you've already done. It has to be something that you've
yeah,
already achieved. And so your goal could be to continue making
continue.
$10,000 a month, for example. That would be,
Yeah.
yeah.
You've
Not an
already
up level, it's
proven
just
you're
staying consistent.
capable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's boxes to check,
Yeah.
and it'll happen.
And
B type
sometimes
goal.
like maybe you have young kids and maybe you just stay like it's easier for me to just, have that consistent income. I'm not looking to do any upgrades because maybe I've got a newborn at home or maybe, I just want my business to kind of run while I'm
Yeah.
spending my life, right?
A type goals are easy not to do, which is why I don't recommend them,
Oh, interesting.
because there's no inspiration behind it.
Hmm.
There's no change, there's no motivation. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to, you got a newborn at home and want to keep your income steady. There's nothing wrong with that. And that could be holding steady. I just think in the world of goal setting, there's nothing overly expiring about that or challenging.
Hmm.
It's things stay the same. And I think as creative beings with this ability to constantly expand and to grow, staying the same, I think, fights against our natural instinct, right? We live
Hmm.
in an expanding universe, and
Hmm.
right? So it's not that you have to have ridiculously obnoxious goals that are going to throw you out of alignment with the things that are important to you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying A-type goals, nothing changes, right? Then B-type goals are, it's a little bit above where you are. So A-type is, I already know how to do it. I've already done it.
Hmm.
B-type goals are like, oh, if I checked these boxes, if I made a few more phone calls, if I
Hmm.
did a couple more webinars, if I sent a few more emails,
Hmm.
it's pushing you a little bit. But again, they're I don't find them. I could be completely wrong for you, but for myself, I don't find that inspiring. And it's easy to procrastinate, to make excuses, to not do those things. A
Because it's like
C
it's
type,
just a negligible increase, right? So it's like
I
like
want to
like
go, go
yeah,
on.
it's not a huge quantum leap, I guess. It's not a big
It's not a
shift.
quantum leap at
Yeah.
all. There's no leaping. There's sitting
More like puddle
down.
jumping.
Yeah, like it's and again, these are very common goals. When I would teach, business, and when I would lecture on business and sales strategies and success, and I would say write a goal down. A lot of times, most people's goals fall in A or B. It's
Mhm.
either like, you know what, I made $500 last month. I want to do that again with my home-based business, or
Mhm.
I it, I just want to make a little bit more to pay off. Like I find we set realistic goals, and realistic goals have there's just, to me, it's like there's no growth, there's no creativity, there's no opportunity for miracles, there's no new alignments that can come out of it, right? It's like if you're going to set a goal, make it, this is what leads to C type goals, which is like set a goal that it's like, this is what I really want,
Wow.
but I don't have a clue
Yeah.
how I'm going to do it. And that goal requires new programming, new thinking, new feelings, and it requires you to grow and change. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur is it's this continual evolution. We get to go through the person I am now versus over 20 years ago. I am a completely different human being. I have gone through so many different experiences and like those things, some of them were really difficult and hard, and some of them were, were really just super challenging. But it's like all of those things brought me to here. And if I didn't experience those, I wouldn't experience what I have right now.
But you didn't know at the time, right? It's like the fact that you were able to, Gloria Steinem, I think it was, that said big, hairy, audacious goals, right? It's like if you
Yeah.
hadn't set that audacious goal, you wouldn't even know that a miracle was possible for you to get there. Now that the
And I
miracle is
love that.
present, it's like, what's my next big, hairy, audacious goal?
And that's it. That's 100% like it's like that big goal is like it should feel impossible, but
Mhm,
it should also be really aligned. Like I don't set big money goals.
mhm.
It's more like, okay, the money is going to come to support the
My
goal,
lifestyle.
right? Yeah, yeah. So we wanted the house I live in now, beautiful house and a really nice, beautiful neighborhood. It was still affordable to us when we bought it, which is great, but it fit our family so perfectly because I was so clear about what I needed and I didn't know where it was going to be or how it was going to come apart together. I'll share another story. When I was with the supplement company, leading a sales team with them. At the beginning of the year, my C-type goal, because I always at the beginning of the year, that's when you can set a C-type goal today. I hope you do.
Parts.
If you're
Yeah.
listening to this, I hope you set
Yes.
a ridiculous goal today.
Yeah.
But I got into the practice of beginning of the year, what is a ridiculous goal? And I wanted to build the number one team in the company. And number one can be measured in different ways, like sales, team growth, promotion, leadership promotions, that sort of thing. And at the time, I was a pretty small, I was a leader with the company, but I was down the totem pole quite a bit. There was some much bigger teams that did more sales promotions. They had sold more volume. They just had a bigger impact. Their teams were much, much larger. And I wrote down, I'm so happy and grateful now that we are the number one team in Canada. And I told my team this. I'm like, this is our goal for the year. This is
Yeah.
what I'm going to tell myself about us. And throughout that, by the end of that year, by September, actually, we were the number one, the top team in the
Wow.
company. We
And it
promoted the
only took
most.
9 months. Look how
It only
fast.
took 9 months. But let me tell you, when I first started telling myself that C-type goal, it felt like BS.
Of course.
Like it did. It felt like I was lying to myself. And it was
Yeah.
like, oh, I actually felt uncomfortable. But eventually I started, it's like if you tell yourself a white lie long enough, eventually it starts to become true a little bit, right? And I was like, so, and then it started to feel possible. And then, and this is the most important thing about these C-type goals, when you have this goal and you start to convince yourself that that you're doing it, that we'll figure it out, doesn't matter how long it's going to take, is your brain starts to look for evidence of.
Yes. That's the
So
reticular activating system.
this is it, right? Buy a
Literally a
car and
part
you'll
of the
see everybody who
brain.
drives a car like
That's right.
yours.
That's right.
Right. So and that's what ended up happening is like one of the teams, one of the biggest teams quit, moved to another company. That
Wow.
completely fell apart for them, moved them out of the way. Another team just like totally lost momentum. And we hung on to this. We're the number one team. And it just like blew us right to the top. I was speaking on international stages. I won a bunch of awards. And it was like it went from BS to possibility to I'm seeing it happen to
Mhm.
it's happening to it's we did it, right? And
And you
that
just
that's how
held the frequency, right? You held the frequency of this is
yeah,
possible, this is happening. I think
yeah.
like the only maybe one of the biggest stumbling blocks is you're not just dealing with your own energy, your own frequency, your own mindset, your programming. It's the programming that everybody else in the group has. So if there's one person in there
Yeah.
that maybe feels like, I don't know if this, but you're bringing the energy, you're bringing the motivation, you're showing up for those calls, coaching calls, saying like, this is what we got to do. And I feel like that helps. I mean, that's what a good leader and a good manager does, right?
Well, and what's interesting is people who don't align. So it's like when you work on mindset and you change how you're thinking and the conversations that you're having, the
Hmm.
people in your life change.
Yes.
Right. So
Yes.
as I was
That's
going through
big.
that process, going from like what I felt like was a small fish to a big
Yeah.
fish and really having impact, it was that it attracted a lot of people who were aligned with that higher level of performance. We're finding them, and we were creating a stronger culture. It felt more inclusive. People, it was something that everybody, even like people that weren't a part of our group, wanted to be a part of. But and the lower energy individuals, the people that weren't aligned with that, they just, I say they naturally exfoliated out, right? So as
You're
you
dead
change,
skin.
it's kind of what happens, right? Like you, when you look around you and you look at the results and what's happening in your life and what your life looks like, I think there's this ownership of we created this.
Hmm.
And if there's things in it you don't like, it's like at some point you were aligned with this based on your thoughts, based on your conversations, based on how you were feeling. But we have this amazing ability to change that. And that to me is where the importance of the C type goal comes in. Because if I choose A and B goals, nothing, like I said, nothing around me has to change. But if I choose a ridiculous goal and I just am committed to, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm going to get committed to this, then I have to change the way I think.
Hmm.
I have to change the way I act. I have to change the conversations. I got to, and naturally it's like meeting you. Like
Yeah.
I hadn't been to that networking dinner in 10 years.
Wow. Wow. And you
And
haven't been
just
back
thought,
since.
I haven't been back since. And I just was like, I'm going to stop in. I have friends there that
Yeah.
people I really love. And I was like, I'm just going to go for fun.
Yeah.
And then we connected and then we had coffee. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it feels like we were friends for like 20 years in
That's
that
right.
conversation.
And
Right. And
friends
then
on Facebook for a decade and didn't even realize. Yeah.
that's
That shows you
exactly.
how much, you actually get to see on
But
social
that's
media.
that's the power of alignment. And I've read so many things on manifesting. I ran a new age clinic prior to being a believer. I was, really in the whole, learning about manifesting. and
Hmm.
and I remember feeling so frustrated by it and being like, why is it and it's really just alignment.
Hmm.
As you grow and you change, you're aligned with different things. And, when we look at people who are really wealthy and easily make money, that's what they're in alignment with,
Mm.
right? But there's programs, there's thoughts, there's beliefs, there's
Hmm.
actions, there's conversations, they're not
Like,
talking about lack every day.
yeah. And maybe, the conversation shifts from, active income, right? So they're actively making income. They know what they need to do to actively make income. And maybe, a mindset shift that they might go into is I want to make 30% from passive income. I don't want to be, slogging away. You reach a certain age or you reach a certain level of
Yep.
success or comfort. And then that in itself can shift things, right? So it's a different way of thinking about a C type goal.
It's a natural evolution, right? I think A and B goals just we don't evolve with them,
Hmm.
right? It's easy. How many people set New Year's resolutions that are realistic?
Yeah.
And then, like,
Mostly
10
going to
days,
the gym.
right? And then we're all like, but it's like,
Mm.
why do we not stick with them? Because they're A and B type goals. Either
Exactly.
you've done it before, or if you do these things, you can hit it. And there's no evolution in it. And it's just, if you want a healthy person
Mhm.
who eats really, really clean, I wish I was one of those. I do. I eat well because I have enough
Compared to,
knowledge
yeah.
to understand
Uh,
and to enjoy healthy
but we
foods,
all have our
right?
vices, is what you're saying.
This is it. I'm hardly perfect. But somebody who eats really well and maybe they're super fit and they're really active,
Mhm.
that is the program they operate on.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like they make decisions from that place, from that frequency
From
that, they don't even have to shift out of that. It's like this is,
the radio station they listen
yeah,
to every
yeah,
day.
yeah. So just thinking about ambitious women, because you are
Mhm.
obviously one of them. What do you think that ambitious women like you struggle with when it comes to visibility in particular, but success in general?
Um, I, speaking from my own experience, me trying to control the outcome, like the result I wanted versus
Mm.
allowing the result to unfold, I think that was I just felt like, I don't know, I grew up with two blue collar, hardworking parents. I was always the hardest worker at any job I ever had. I could outwork anybody. I could outwork,
Yeah.
even to this day, that program shows up.
Yeah.
Someone will be like, oh, like you've
Take a
only been in real
break.
estate a few years. How are you creating so
Go to
much
the beach,
success? And
Alyssa.
immediately my brain's like, because I'll outwork anyone,
Yeah.
right? But it's really outworking is just leads to burnout and it's
Exactly.
just ridiculous. So I think it's like I'm okay with how things unfold.
Hmm.
That control, that trust and faith for me, and that
Hmm.
trust and that just just that is a big part of relief, I think, in my success. And it has allowed more opportunities and things to turn out better than I ever could have
Could have
imagined or
been.
made it happen.
Hmm.
So just, yeah, trust and allowing is, letting go of control. I think the secret, and I think this has always been a part of my personality because I grew up with very caring, giving parents.
Hmm.
But if everything you do, I try not to make my business selfish. I try to make it about contribution and leaving people better than they were.
Hmm.
And that has really helped me to build a good reputation and to have a good following and have people who want to trust, that know, like, and trust in business,
Hmm.
right?
And
So
be in the community, right? It's like it's one thing to have a business, but to have a business that is community oriented or, focused
yeah,
in some way outside of yourself that's
at
the
the end of it,
legacy.
is the job I'm doing like I think really, and we talk about this in the bio,
Hmm.
it's no matter what career I'm in, it's always been about helping somebody else reach their goals. When I was
Hmm.
a natural health practitioner, it was about helping them reach their health goals. It was their health goals. It wasn't
Hmm.
my health goals. It was
Hmm.
their health goals. When I was, in the sales team, built the sales team with the health supplement company, it was about helping other people build their health, have access to something that allowed them to build their health. So we built an entire community around that. We had over 5,000 families involved with that on a regular basis.
Wow.
But then also it was about, for the team, it was about what was important to them. Did they want to stay home and raise their kids? That how much do they need to make in order to be home and raise? So it was entirely, the success of that business was based entirely on other people's goals, not my own. I still had my own,
Mhm.
but my own goal, the achievement of that came from helping them reach their goal. And now in real estate, which I transitioned to just because I needed new challenges. It was something I didn't want to get to the end of my life and say I didn't do something I wanted to do. I've been buying and selling houses since I was 21. So, and it was just I think part of me was like, could I do it again somewhere else?
Mm.
It's a little bit of
Yeah.
like, because I had to
Have the
start
same level, yeah, the same
right from
level
the
of success.
bottom,
Yeah, in a different
go through
industry.
all the challenges of rebranding and remarketing. So any of you who are listening, I've done it.
Yeah.
It sucks. It's hard. Like it took, but even there, like the success that I've had in real estate has been about helping my clients reach their goals, buying and
Mhm.
selling their houses. Like,
Mhm.
if I'm not helping them reach their goals, we're not getting a deal done.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think that really, I've always made my business about other people, which ultimately still leads me to my own personal goals as well.
Mm.
Does that answer?
Mhm. Yeah, and just thinking about like visibility. Do you ever have challenges around that? Because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs that are kind of like in face-to-face type industry, like even, just like say a business that is mostly in person and not online, but the online entrepreneurship, it opens up a whole other can of people around the world being able to comment and make judgments and, specific stuff around that. But I imagine there's probably a lot of programming that you may have had to unlearn along the way or, experiences that you've had where you realize like, hey, being online, it brings out
Mhm.
all the keyboard warriors, as they say. So, have you had any challenges around visibility and really kind of
Oh
getting
gosh,
your
yeah.
your message?
There's so much. Like there's, being vulnerable is really difficult, right?
Mm.
And putting yourself out there. And we no longer live. When I first launched my first company, like early 2000s, like a website was it. Like, the only way someone could harass you was like, I didn't even have Facebook when I started my first
Yeah.
company, right? So you had a website and that was it. Like that's, somebody could
Blog
send you a nasty
comments.
email and it was like that was it,
Yeah.
right? So we live in a world where everybody has an opinion, which is great. I believe in the freedom of opinions and the freedoms of choice and the freedom to live our lives the way we want to live our lives.
Mhm.
But we've decided somehow that, our opinions should matter more than how somebody else feels and their choices. And I think we lose freedom in that. Freedom comes
Mhm.
from having the ability to be who we are and live how we want to live and
Mhm.
make our own choices. But going back to the, visibility, I had to learn that, a secret to business is know, like, and trust.
Mhm.
So if you are a hidden genius, you
Mhm.
are helping no one. And you have to just be willing to put yourself out there. And I've learned not to take it personally. I've had my fair share of attacks and negativity, and it happens, as businesses grow.
Mhm.
But again, it's like it's what you plug into. I've learned to rest in that and send love, not get worked up. I'm a fight or flight person. I'm all fight. It's just
Yeah,
I was raised with brothers. I'm always going to show up.
totally.
Like I have a hard time not showing up sometimes, and
Yeah.
and that was a big personal growth thing for me, is to learn to be like, you know what, like we don't know what's
This
going
is not
on.
worth the fight, right? Like
Yeah,
essentially
delete,
this particular
delete.
problem. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
like
Yeah.
I just,
Delete,
if I get
block.
negative comments, I delete them. I don't
Yeah.
respond to them anymore. I don't try to justify my position.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
try to, it's just, it's delete. We are not aligned. But I have found that you attract you attract your community, right? Based on who you are and how you're operating. So as I've grown and evolved, I've attracted a more mature and grown and evolved community around me as well. But I do think it is very intentional. I Facebook for me is the platform that's always worked. That's where most of my friends and audience, and
Mhm.
that's where I've chosen to build my community. I know some people do TikTok, some do, Instagram. I don't think any one platform is better than another. I think the one you use is the
Yes.
one that's the most important. And I've just, I've just learned to share and to try to add value.
Mhm.
So like I tape short videos on topics on that kind of offer clarity around things with no ask for sales,
Mhm.
just like, hey, I hope you find this useful type of
Mhm.
content. And you really want to you'll cultivate your audience that way. And know that 100 people who genuinely enjoy and value what you do is so
Mhm.
much more valuable than 1 million people who don't understand
Or pay attention
or
or
pay attention. Like I'm not an influencer. I don't have tens of thousands of followers. It's never been a goal of mine.
Mhm. And you haven't needed it to reach the success that you've had, right? That
I
audience
just
was not.
cultivate my own community, and by sharing, my values and things that are important to me and things that add value to other people's lives, and being consistent. Like if you're posting once a week on any of those platforms, it's not working. It
Yeah.
won't work.
Mhm.
But if you're a face-to-face person, then you need to be out and face-to-face. Like if you are, you attend networking events,
Mhm.
that was when I first launched my company. That was how we didn't have Facebook. I had a really crappy website, and my relationships were built
With
attending
a handshake.
anything I could. Yeah,
I
yeah,
love like for me like the core, I mean it's really a value of yours, but the core kind of sensibility and underlying thread of all the work that you've done regardless of the industry is really about being of service. So
yes,
it's like even with your videos, right? It's this idea of while you're providing education, you're supporting people, they may or may not be in a position where they're buying in this moment. Like maybe they're just first time home buyers and they're just trying to think about, what does the housing market look like? And certainly
yeah,
as things change, right? But being able to just be the face that it's like, yeah, you can trust me. Like I'm giving you my honest opinion. I'm not trying to swindle you into something because I feel like people have a lot of, and I would say that I'm probably more of a naive type. Don't send the scammers my way, but there's a lot of people who are so, I guess, almost, aggressively anxious about people scamming them and being taken advantage of. And, it's probably happened at other times in their life, right? So that's the programming that's running through them. Oh, I'm going to, someone's going to take advantage of me or someone's going to do something that, I'm in a vulnerable position. I'm buying, probably the biggest asset of their life for
yeah,
most people. And so
yeah,
being able to be that face that just says like, hey, this is what the market's doing and this is what you need to know, even like straightforward things like 5 keys to first time home buying and all that stuff. Cause people are, I mean, those are infinitely Googleable SEO.
Yeah, all content helps, all content, right? So if you're not creating content, like we live in a content creation world
Mhm.
for entrepreneurs, but it doesn't have to be 10,000 views. Like I've gotten new clients in real estate from a video that had 30 views,
Wow.
right? Like it
Wow.
doesn't,
That was some good video,
yeah,
Alyssa.
you just don't know what's gonna, and again, letting go and allowing and just being
Yes.
like, I'm doing this to be of service and
Mhm.
whatever comes from it, whatever doesn't, doesn't. But I always taught, even when I led the sales team, it's not my job to convince you
Yes.
to buy what I have or to use my services. It is my job to be the first person you think of the
Mhm.
moment you need what I have or do.
Mm. And it's also knowing that you are the person, like, I've got a problem, I need a house, or I need a second house, or whatever people are
Yeah.
dealing with.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's the solution, right? And then, Alyssa has the solution, right? So
Exactly.
many people don't
Exactly.
know in their business what problem they're solving.
That really is probably the key thing of content that I constantly work at is what problems or what have I had emails or questions or text messages or
Mhm.
something around, and then that's ultimately what I'll go into a video and try to figure out a solution to.
It's like it
Yeah.
sparks that
It
response.
does, yeah, yeah, and again, I'm working on a big C-type goal. I'm going to keep it a secret right now because it's
Okay.
not done, and I'm going through some stuff as I'm trying to work through it. But just a reminder to anybody out there who's like set a big goal and they feel like every obstacle, every speed bump, this is all. I've been through this before, so I'm so grateful that I understand that it is part of the process. It is
Mhm.
part of that evolution. You think of a butterfly breaking out of a cocoon. If you
Yes,
open that cocoon for that butterfly, it can't
yes,
fly, right?
of
So
course.
as you're evolving, you're going to come up against obstacles and challenges. And it's such a difficult thing to go through because it's really easy to quit. It's really easy to second guess yourself, to think that you're not doing the right things, to derail yourself, to go take another course.
Take a goal that's even less, right? You say, okay, well, that goal's not going to happen. I'm going to set something realistic because it's
Yeah.
it's almost like confirmation the nervous system needs, something that's more accessible, but yours is like hold
Yes.
the frequency, hold the
You just,
promise.
yeah, like get back on track, like, and you'll learn, you'll do it faster. Like
Mhm.
as I was saying yesterday, I had kind of just a moment, and it wasn't even like a big thing, but it just I had a moment, and allow yourself to have that moment, but don't hang out there, right? I think cultivating good community too. Like I'm really lucky I'm surrounded by other, because I've learned how to become and function as a top performing
Mhm.
female entrepreneur. I've also happened to build a community of other top performing female entrepreneurs. And, don't be afraid to be like, hey, I am having a moment. I need some positivity. Like, I
Mhm.
have a friend who will pray for me and send me a prayer by voice note.
Love it.
And the power of hearing
That
her
someone,
words, and just it's so beautiful, and it immediately shifts me, and I save them because
Mhm.
sometimes if
Of
I
course,
re-listen to them, right?
of
But that
course.
could be like a friend who's going to like just tell you, like you're
Yeah,
amazing, there's
yeah.
nothing you can't do.
Mhm.
But yeah, just know that if you're coming up against stuff, you're growing.
I love
Because
that. Like,
and here's
Alyssa's
what
phone a friend.
yeah, and
We
that
all need a phone a friend.
so this is a really, really tough real estate market. We were looking at some stats at the end of 2025 and coming into 2026, and
Mhm.
it was the TRUB stats, which Toronto Real Estate Board, and regional real estate board, and they had put out basically like 56% of agents. I don't quote me, I'd have to find the image, but around over 50% had sold zero homes last year,
Mm.
and like another 30 something percent had sold
A couple.
1 to 4,
Yeah.
right? And I had someone say to me,
Doing.
how are you doing this when so many people are not?
Yeah.
It's because I'm not plugged into the
Exactly.
stories about not, the media,
Exactly.
the
The
market.
news. Yeah.
I'm plugged in. I got a different radio
That's not your
station.
frequency. Yeah. That's,
Yeah, like I
yeah,
am plugged into my goals, my people, and I'm doing the work. Like this idea, I think that's where I got frustrated when I was,
Mhm.
years and years ago, learning about manifestation and thinking like, why is it not happening?
Mhm. Mhm.
Little did I realize it was like your success can't exceed your program.
Mhm.
And I wasn't capable of what I can do now back then because my programs weren't what they are now,
Yeah.
then, right? As they are now. And you really have to back your goals with faith and action. You got to
Yes.
know that.
Yes.
So, anyways, going back to the stories, I got off track with about the.
I think that was an important message that everybody need to hear. So,
Well, so I had another agent say like, how are you doing this? And I said, well, listen, if it was easy, I wouldn't be growing. So the
Mm,
fact that it's hard right now,
ah,
and it has been a very tough market to launch a real estate career
of
in, and I'm
course.
so grateful for the success that we've had and the blessings and the clients and everything. But I'm kind of also grateful that I launched in one of the worst markets in history since like the
Yes.
90s
Yes.
because my skill set and the growth, because if it was easy, if I had came in COVID when everything was like
Top of the
houses
market.
were selling like,
Yeah.
you just
Double
had to put your sign out
voiceover.
front
Yeah.
and and
That's
it
how
was
I sold
so
my house.
if I had done that, I don't know that I would have survived now
Yeah. Yeah.
because I wouldn't have. So if it's hard, you're growing. And
And
if
it's
you're
the
growing,
resiliency piece too, right? That's really key.
yeah, it's where the new programs are going to come from.
Mhm.
It's where you're going to have to look at, what is getting in the way, what actions are you not taking. So I don't want people to think, oh, well, she just thinks the right thoughts and it
Yeah.
magically appears. No,
Yeah.
I think the right thoughts, and then I work really focused and really hard and very intentional. But I also give myself permission to unplug so that my health doesn't suffer and my body can regenerate and my mind
Mhm.
can be clear. And, I have all those practices. So it's a lot. There's a lot that goes through, somebody who's doing well.
Mhm. And so we've talked a lot about kind of from a perspective of strategy of like setting your goals and going after them. But what role does intuition play in your business? Because that's obviously a big part of like how do you, you're tuning into whatever messages, source, God,
Mhm.
you're being inspired, you're being motivated, sometimes, it's having to pick you up off the floor. Other times it's just a little like pat on the back, you got this kind of vibe. But like, what role does intuition play in your business and in your own personal growth?
Intuition is a tough subject only because I think sometimes our programs interfere with our intuition,
Yes,
right?
always. I would say
Always.
100% of the time.
So you know, that I think as a female, and I know men are just as intuitive as women, but I just feel like as a girl, the gift of being a woman is that we do have a strong intuition. We do trust our guts, where we feel it, whether or not we trust it and follow it.
Mhm.
Um, I definitely seek divine guidance, and
Mhm.
I definitely listen for it. Um, when I am dealing with the most chaos in my business or in my mind or my personal life or whatever, it's when I am the least connected to, for me, it's God. It's when I
Yes.
am the least connected. So I feel like having strong spiritual practices are important for the development of intuition, and also just pausing and trusting your gut a lot as an entrepreneur. It's easy to get really excited about things and jump from one thing to the next or make really big, investments. I've done it. I've paid
Mhm.
for really expensive coaching programs that that I really didn't need, didn't
Yeah.
check any of the boxes I actually need checked, but I made an impulsive decision that wasn't intuitive.
Hmm. It was,
So
pressure or impulse versus
yeah, yeah.
intuitive. Yeah.
Manipulation even.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, for me, journaling really helps. So in my journal, I do a couple key things that help me stay connected to, that divine source,
Mhm.
whatever that is for you.
Mhm.
And one, I track abundance moments. So anytime
Mhm.
something happens that's like, oh, right? Like I got a gift card in the mail from a lawyer's office from a deal that closed. It was
Oh,
$10, but I was so
someone bought
excited
me
because
lunch.
I
Yeah.
was like, oh, letter from a lawyer. Oh,
Yeah.
hope this is good. Opening it up.
In your
And it was
case,
like,
it's good.
yeah. So, and every time I bought it, I love tea. I'm a tea
Yeah.
drinker. So every time I got a
Oh,
tea with that card, it just reminded me. But it was like, I wrote that, I put AM and I circle it in my journal.
yeah.
And every day I'm looking for abundance moments.
I love that.
And it's funny because again, what you start to look for, you start to find. And I'm like, wow, like this client came from out of the blue, or this really great connection with this person, or this, there's just so many things. So it's not always, about getting something physical either, but I always track abundance moments. The other thing I do is if I feel like I've received some guidance or a message or whatever in my prayer meditation time, in my journal, I'll write a little M and then, kind of two dots, and then I'll journal on that so that I can revisit that.
Mhm.
And what's interesting over the years is because I do go back on my journals. I actually carry my journal with me all the time because if I'm waiting to get my son from school, I'll go through my gratitude practice from that morning. So I also write 10 things every single day that I'm grateful for, first thing in the morning, kind of as I'm closing off my mindset time. And I just kind of reread, I'll read through. But it's amazing when I go back through um, those moments that I wrote that for meditation, like, I downloaded something,
Yeah.
from the spiritual realm. And I'll be like, wow, that actually came true. How many times
Wow.
things like and sometimes it's guidance for my business, sometimes it's about things, that happen. So I think learning, and we know that people who pray and meditate develop parts of their brain
Hmm.
that are underdeveloped or underutilized.
Offline. We'll say it's offline.
Offline, I love that. So that to me has really created, and when I'm stressing or I'm feeling uncertain, I will pray and meditate until I've learned to not do things on my own accord. I will pray and meditate until I feel like I've actually been given. And sometimes even in that pause, the answer
Mhm.
comes, right?
Of
So
course.
I think intuition is essential for a successful business. However, you find a way to integrate it or develop it. But, my prayer meditation life is so different now than 6 years ago. And I've always prayed and meditated, like always as an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. I've always been a spiritual person. Even from when I was a child, I was always really spiritual.
Mm.
I just found my avenue, my path, and my way of doing things.
It's
But
made
yeah.
it a non-negotiable. I think that's the key for people to understand. It's like, so many people, I see this in my business where people are only kind of feeling into their spiritual gifts, their spiritual life when life is chaotic and stressful. That's when they turn to God. They don't turn to God in all of the blessings and the grateful moments and the times when life is good because it would be easy. It's like, quote unquote, I don't need God because
Yeah.
I'm already living the blessing. So I find that really interesting. Like just the fact that it's a non-negotiable for you, an hour every day, and you've made it happen. You get up before your kids are up. You get up before, the world starts demanding and asking for things and asking you to respond to their priorities. You're being really intentional about, what you want, your relationship with God, source,
Hmm.
community, the people around you, your day to day, your family, what they need.
Yeah.
I think that non-negotiable, that consistency piece is, the thing that's probably
Yeah.
missing for a lot of people. Because it's like, yeah, of
And
course,
it's
God will come when, in those moments, but it's, yeah, come in the moments where it's like, well, life is good. That's,
Well, developing that spiritual practice and again, me having that relationship with God, it has created, it's taken the stress and anxiety of everything is up to me to do, to figure
yes.
out, to sort. There is a divine power. There is a loving God, a loving universe that really, an expansive, a creative, there's so much creative powers. And I believe we're here to do good work and to change our world and to have positive influence on each other. And we live in a world of misalignment and
Hmm.
a world of so much chaos. And I love the book Power versus Force. When you
Yes.
choose
Hmm.
to be in alignment and take that time and focus on love and focus on kindness and just being that, you actually influence the energetic field
Hmm.
in your community, in your like your community where you live. Like So it's like the more of us that come back, whatever that practice is for you. But you're right. Like I found, well, I kind of have a God story, but I found, for me, I found I had a lot of spiritual practices. I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of misalignment. I had a lot of this to this to this to this. Like I would read this book and
We're
follow this
evolving, yeah.
spiritual teacher and then follow this. And then, for me, I had this hole inside me that I tried to fill with like kids and work and success
Marriage.
and learning and marriage and experiences and certifications and knowledge. And that hole was always empty. Like there was just, and I didn't know that I had an empty hole until that empty hole was filled.
Ooh.
And for me, that was, my experience was attending a church and learning and just feeling like I was home and I was safe and I was loved and people cared about me and, there was purpose for my life and what I was doing. And that hole immediately in that moment was filled and I knew I was home.
Wow.
And that really is what instigated that consistency in my spiritual life, which has had such a tremendously positive impact on my success that like that was a turning point in my career. The before my faith showed up,
Mhm.
the chaos, the hardship, the
Mhm.
struggle, the survival,
Working on your
to
own, like feeling like you are doing it all alone and don't have.
like, yeah, like, oh my gosh. And then realizing there is a power that cares about us and, like, and I can lean and call on that. Are you kidding me? And then everything's just like the people who showed up in my life, the opportunities that showed up. But also, spiritual growth is tough. Like let's
Yes.
not sugarcoat it because
Yes.
you have to face some really difficult things about yourself through that spiritual growth process. But as you do so, I think that develops your intuition and you have less barriers to understanding yeah, and recognizing other amazing souls and people and yeah.
Experiences, and I think of
Yeah.
it's like a spiritual awakening, and it's like you spent a lot of time seeking for that thing
Yes.
that was going to fill that hole until you realize like God is already within you. I mean, that I
Yeah.
think that's the big, I guess, challenge or experience that people go through, and people think of spiritual awakenings as being this like beautiful, butterflies and like life is all rosy. And it's like, no, it's the tornado that takes your house out, or it's the bankruptcy, or it's it's the thing in the real, quote unquote, the real world that really shakes your foundations. And you realize like where, those things are material. They're wonderful. They're great to set goals, but like at the end of the day, like what's most important? It's like, oh, my family's safe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I've got a roof over my head. It might not be my own roof. It might be somebody else's roof, but like, thank God I have community to rely on too, right? So, yeah, I find
And
that's
life is hard for all of us. Like nowhere are we promised to have a life without some level of hardship, right? Like we all, and part of that is our evolution and growth in our own personal journey here,
yeah,
right? But I think it's important to have something that you can plug into that does give you peace and helps you grow and gives you community. I think those are really important as part of our journey because often when we feel, well, like, here's something that most entrepreneurial women experience: isolation.
yes,
Right? Like we're doing this on our own. Even if you're
yes,
leading a team, you still feel like you're on your own. You're
yes,
just doing it for others, right?
yes.
So
You might have people that are in your life that want to support you, but maybe they're not tuned into the same frequency. They kind of, they might have their own opinions about like who,
they're not in the
even the
trenches with you.
audacious, right? Yeah. It's like, who is she to want this for her life when she came from this background that I also am from, right? So that plugging into that lack,
Or
that
their program, right? Like you're surrounded by
exactly.
people that are like their programs are and that's a challenging thing to navigate too, is as you start to evolve and grow, there's going to be people around you who are, it's like the crabs pulling the other crabs back into the pot, right? Like, where do you think you're going? Like,
I love
hang
it.
on a second, your program
Yeah,
doesn't align with my program. We
totally.
went through that in our marriage, where
Totally.
it was like I started to create a lot of success, and my husband started to feel uncertain about what that was going to mean for
Yes.
him, right?
Yes.
But that was his program, not
Yeah.
mine. At no point did I ever think, like
It's programming, it's nervous system. It's like, what can I realistically hold, right? It's certainly when
Mhm.
people kind of in their goals, they're ambitious, when they exceed what their parents might have had. I feel like that's kind of a flagship moment where people realize like, hey, I'm making double what my parents ever made. And like, who
Yeah,
am I? And but then
of
it's like, no,
course.
you set another sea level type goal, right? It's like, well, you
Yeah.
think that, but you do,
It's just who you've become,
yeah.
right? That's the thing about income and success. It's literally just who you've become. Oh,
It's kind of an important part of,
yeah, I'm getting a message here. Yeah, it's who you become, right? So it's like you were here and now you're here, and that's, but the isolation is real. Like, we do feel very much on our own as female entrepreneurs, and well, this is, the importance of, you're part of our mastermind, and
mm,
I do these things at no cost. And why do I do that? Because I'm cultivating a community so that I am not doing that on my own, and
mhm,
I'm choosing people who I want to learn and benefit
mm,
from, but also whom I can also do the same. I can give as well. So, it's really important not to feel isolated. And spiritual practices, I feel, take us out of that isolation as well, because it gives us,
yes,
again, whatever your spiritual practice is, it gives
mm,
us that connection that's beyond ourselves, because
yes,
it's just not healthy to feel completely alone all the time. If you're an entrepreneurial woman building a business and you've got little kids at home, there's not a lot of people that totally understand that unless they've
mhm,
done that.
mm,
So that can feel really tough.
yeah. I have one last question, if you'll
Sure.
indulge me.
Yeah.
If there's a woman listening, or many women listening, that feel torn between their motherhood, their business, and even just their ambitious goals, and this idea of like creating a meaningful life, whatever that looks like for them, what would you want her to hear? What would you want to share about creating this life that's meaningful and a life of legacy?
Have to write it down.
Hmm.
So getting clear, when I teach, I still get calls from, like insurance companies and sales companies to do trainings and business trainings. And the very first thing any of us have to do is we have to be clear. And
Hmm.
it's a lack of clarity that creates a lot of doubts and uncertainty. So, like, what do you want your work hours to look like? Your life may or may not completely align, but it's amazing when you get clear and you write it down and you get invested in that, how quickly things will start to move to fit that, right? So you got to get clear. You've got to write it down. What do you want? I write everything down. What do I want to experience in my home? What do I want to experience in my career? What do I want to experience in my relationships and my friendships and my marriage? As a mother, all of these things are things I write down in my journal, and I'm very, very clear about them. And I often, I'll write them from a place of already being accomplished, because I'm feeling it, because it's who we are. So I write it, even though maybe it's a C-type goal, I'll write it as if it's already done. And then I review it and I review it and I review it. And that helps me to make good choices, choices that are aligned with what I want my life to look like. Like, I am so lucky, uh, and so grateful that my life is exactly the way I designed it.
Wow.
Right?
How many people
Just
can say that at this point in
and,
their
and
life, right?
do I want to earn more? Of course I do. Do I want to have, is there other things I want to be able to do? Absolutely. Is there experiences I want to have? Absolutely. But I have, all of us, you, any listener, you've literally created your world, right?
Mhm.
If you're an adult and you have the freedom to make choices, you might not like your circumstances, but they essentially, and I've gone through tough stuff. Like, I had a brother who died of suicide. I had another brother who died of an infection. I lost my house over something that was the fault of a large corporation. Like, we were left homeless with 4 kids. We had to, like, restart our life, buy another house. We were victims of attempted murder. Like we've been through stuff,
I think
and
you
none of
buried the
these
lead.
things, none of these things do I feel I attracted to myself. I
Yeah.
don't think,
Yeah.
but life, the external world is still going to show up.
Mhm.
But really, you have so much power if you are clear on what you want your life to look like. So, despite all of those really tough things happening in my life, I've still been able to create an incredible life that I'm so grateful to get up and live every single day
Mm.
because I was intentional about it. And I don't allow life to just happen to me. I am intentional about what I want it to look like. And I think the right thoughts, I feel the right feelings, and I take the right actions to move me towards that.
Mm. I feel like there's there's so much more I want to ask, but I also want to be mindful of our time. So I feel like part two is gonna be
We'll do a part two.
scheduled in that. Yeah.
We'll
Part
talk about those
two.
things. Yeah.
That's right. I just want to thank you so much for this incredible chat. I feel like there are so many, I mean, countless nuggets of wisdom in this where people will see reflections of themselves and really kind of see the areas in their life where, they might be not in alignment or they might not be on the right track. And they might just doing that, having a consistent practice, whatever that is, taking action, having the faith that they're going to actually be able to achieve that A level goal, maybe, but also their B and C type goals that, like you said, are going to push them more in the direction of who they want to be and who they want to become in the future. Is there anything else that you want to share? Anything that you're working on? Anything that's particular to, that people might want to tune into? Obviously, follow Alisa on social
Yeah.
media
Please
because that's
follow me on
the place.
Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah,
We need more followers. I don't have very
yeah.
many. But I think, if I can leave some parting words, just do the things that are scary.
Ooh,
I think that's all of this stuff that we've talked about has been such a great discussion. Thank you very much for allowing, holding the space to have such a cool discussion that we can share with other people. But, at the end of the day, if you're just doing things that are kind of expanding your limits, your borders a little bit, whether it be, finding time for that mindset or spiritual practice, or making that
insight
phone
timer.
call, or
Yeah.
doing that post, or doing that follow, like
Mm-hmm.
just do something scary, because as we do those things, I think, they get easier. It's like, think the first time any of us got behind the wheel of a car, and it was pretty
Or
scary the
behind the
first time we
camera
did
on
it.
Zoom.
Probably more scary for my dad than me, but it was scary. And, but now it's like he gets in the car, not a problem with me. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's just do something scary, just expand your edges a little bit. Be brave enough to set a C-type goal that you have absolutely no idea how you're going to accomplish, but it will require you to evolve and grow and get creative and build new programs and feel new feelings. Because yeah, that's really where the secret stuff lands, and that's where you're going to find that next level of success and happiness for yourself as well.
I love it. It's the secret sauce to Alyssa's next level. Where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, so you can go to, like, I'm Alisa Herriman on Instagram and Facebook. So AlisaHerriman. So those are probably the easiest places. I'm very responsive to messages on there. So if you have any questions, and then my website is alisaherrimanrealestate.com. Feel free to go and check that out as well. And otherwise, yeah, thank you for having me.
And you probably have great resources too for connecting people to real estate and
Yeah,
being able to
yeah,
connect on your website where you can stay in
yeah.
touch and
Yeah, they can follow. I upload all of my videos to YouTube, so I've got lots of different topics on there. So if you want to go and look up Alisa Herriman Real Estate there, you'll find me. I'm pretty easy to find.
okay. I love it. Well, we'll definitely put in the show notes too and have all your contacts and different ways for people to stay in touch. So
Wonderful.
makes it easy peasy. And
Yeah,
I'm so grateful for this
thank
conversation. And
you.
I know other people will be inspired and motivated in a way that they probably have not been inspired and motivated in a long time. Because I feel like that C level goal is going to stretch me, but I'm ready to start thinking about what that might be for me in my life and my business.
Exciting.
So
Awesome. Thank you.
yes, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much.